Hey, I'm Lou Brutus. Always a pleasure to welcome my close personal friend these many years, Brent Smith of Shinedown. Hello to you.
What's happening, handsome? Good to see your face.
I am handsome. I'm a damned handsome man. You're looking really
100%.
good too. You and I were both sort of lamenting early in the pandemic that we were going to blow up like blimps. You know, I put 15 pounds on. I took 3 of it back off, but you're looking great.
Yeah, I had to I got to give a lot of credit to the 4 weeks that we just did. Even though there was 8 shows, there was a lot of lead up time to those shows. So like it was so nice to like go back to the machine because I just have to go on tour with Shinedown to get back in shape. So it's just one of those things where I was able to like start shedding some of that weight off. I tried to stay pretty specific though, and pretty on point with the diet. But the last 20 months for people, it's been a whirlwind. But now we're only about 7 days away from going out on a 5-week run. So yeah, man, just trying to stay fit all the way around, mentally and physically.
How has it been being out recently? Because you and Zachy were two of the only guys I knew who were out fairly regularly during the course of what I call the recent unpleasantness.
Right. So like last year, me and Zach did 10 drive-in shows, like kind of during the height of the pandemic. Those were successful. And then we did at the back half of the year with Smith and Myers, we did another 10 shows. But we did that in a bus. Had no issues there. Came back into this year, did 30 days out on the road earlier in the year. Had no issues with that as well. It was a little bit more normalized when we did it at the beginning of this year. But finally being able to get back out with Shinedown was, man, it was emotional. It really, really was, because, we came in these 8 shows, they were massive. They were like big attendance. Everything was sold out. Obviously, people know what transpired. We're in the middle of rehearsals, and then Barry tested positive for COVID in the middle of rehearsals. We were able to get our good friend Dustin from 6 a.m. to come in and fill in for Barry for 3 shows until Barry had a negative test. Once again, Barry was fully vaccinated in April of this year. So, it kind of is what it is. Got him back out there, and then just stayed really meticulous with the protocol. We're still having to do behind the scenes. The outfit, we kind of create our own bubble. The crew stays with the crew, the band stays with the band and the crew. Days off, we don't kind of go out with anybody else. We kind of stick together. No one right now is, able to kind of go into any kind of big areas where there's a bunch of people without a mask, just because we're still in the middle of this. Because if one of the band members tests positive, we're in a bad situation. So we're just trying to be meticulous about everything going into this next run, which is longer than what we just did. It's 5 weeks, a lot of big shows. The focus is just being smart, staying healthy, doing what we need to do, because we don't need to go backwards. We don't need to go backwards. Like we gotta push forward. I know I'm preaching to the choir, man. Me and you kind of feel the same way about a lot of stuff, but you got to take responsibility for yourself also, man. You got to stay healthy. You've got to stay up on things. You got to, give yourself as much as you can, especially in the industry right now. It's your responsibility. If you are a band or you are an artist that's touring right now, we're still in the middle of all this. So you just got to go through the protocol, man.
And it's especially acute for you guys now. Obviously, you always want to be at the top of your game, and you don't want health issues weighing on you. But with the film coming out, I think you guys really want to have your A game across the board. Now, you and I have spoken for decades about tons of different projects, but I think this one is maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit more special for you. Let's go back to the beginning of the germ of an idea for a film for Attention.
I mean, ultimately, it started out with when me and Eric were in the studio working at the very beginning stages for what would become the Attention Attention album. For people that don't know, our bass player, Eric Bass, who's way more than a bass player, he engineered, he mixed, and he produced the album Attention Attention. So once the song Get Up had been written, that was kind of the sounding board of understanding that it was going to be a story. Like Get Up was kind of the catapult where we said, if we're going to be this honest, we're going to be this forthcoming of ourselves, then we're going to have to go all the way. So that kind of was what allowed us to start putting the threads together and tying all the songs together and making it a conceptual piece. So that inadvertently, like as we were writing, once that song was written, that sparked the idea of it being a concept album. And then we were kind of off to the races, man. And the songs just came in a flood at that point. I remember we wrote Get Up, and then we wrote Human Radio. Then at that point, that's when we wrote Monsters after that. Black Soul came after that. Devil was kind of in the middle of writing when we kind of figured that out. So basically, once Get Up was done, everything else started to fall into place. And then as we're going through that from an audio side and knowing that it's a conceptual piece, the goal was, man, it would be awesome if we can tell the story visually as well. We didn't really necessarily know how we were going to do that at the time, but that was always the goal, was to, no matter what, we were eventually going to tell the whole story visually.
So how do you make this visual story come together? How do you assemble people to do it? Because you guys have certainly done tons of visual projects before, but doing a film is a little bit beyond, hey, Barry's got a couple of GoPros, let's throw some stuff together.
Yeah.
This is a big deal, and this is like a pro film. So tell me about everything and everybody you work with on it.
So there were two major people involved in the execution of, okay, how can we really do this and pull it off? The first person was Chris Brown, who is our product manager for Atlantic Records, who knew of a director, because when I went to Chris and I was like, we have an idea for this visually. And at that point in time too, Marco Bresky, who is another name that's very important here, he was the art director for all of Attention Attention. So all the ideas that we had with the color compound of the yellow and the black, making the exclamation point, like, and part of that too was that we didn't want to put the name Shinedown on the album cover. We wanted to have a symbol outside of the SD symbol that people, when they saw this, they knew what it was. So that was another element to this that tied things together. So upon Chris getting this idea from us, myself and Zach and Eric and Barry, we then became the process of the first single being Devil, because we knew that was going to be the first single. Then we knew Human Radio was going to be the Grat track for everything. I'm dating myself now saying Grat track. That's like old news now. But so getting those two videos done immediately, but figuring out exactly who would be right for that. So Chris brought in a bunch of treatments from a lot of different directors. Some of them were packets. They were old school. Some of them were email chains, where they kind of gave you some descriptions, what have you. But there was this one dude named Bill Yukich that I had never heard of. And by the way, he had never heard of us. But he sent over the most detailed treatment with visual, like, aspects of things and examples of things, and literally for Devil. So went frame by frame of Devil, and it was so meticulous and it was so good that I was like, I want to talk to this guy. So we got on the phone, me and Chris and Bill. We started to talk about the dynamic of we need to do one thing at a time. So it was about doing Devil first and then ultimately doing Human Radio. But then we threw the point of, it's a story album, it's a concept. And lo and behold, I had no idea that Bill Yukich was the editor, and he actually won an Emmy for Beyonce's Lemonade. So he actually edited all of Beyonce's Lemonade together. so then it started finding out, like, you know, he was working a lot with Johnny Depp and, you know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers and, you know, Metallica, the list goes on and on. But the thing is once he found out that it was a story, he was like, well, can I hear the whole record? And we were like, yeah. And so, you know, obviously the single hadn't been out or anything like that yet, nothing, because we released the video and the single to radio and everything and the announcement of the album all at the same time. So he heard the whole record. And then that's when we just started, myself and, you know, Zach and Barry and Eric and Bill, we just started getting on conversations like daily, talking about each aspect of, could we actually start to put this together as a feature film and what it would take to do it. So we started with Devil and the Human Radio. And the interesting thing about Bill was that when you look at the treatment, a lot of times when you get a treatment from a video director, they will put things in it and then you'll go, well, how are we going to do this here? And how are we going to do that? And what about here and here and here? Like, it's not all the way flushed out. And directors will be like, oh, we'll figure it out. And you never really figure it out. You kind of just get what happens that day. That's not the way Bill was. Every single frame, he storyboarded everything. So literally every 5 seconds of each song and the layout of everything, how it was written and then how it was perceived, what we could see on screen before we actually shot it, was exactly the way that it's exactly what you see. Like when you watch the film, that stuff was all pre-planned. There was so much attention to detail that went into the people that he was able to use from years of working in Hollywood. Also, because he came from the East Coast when he was a teenager, he left Chicago, drove out to Los Angeles and never looked back, you know? And so he'd been in Hollywood for a long time. So we used a very minimal amount of CGI on this film. But the CGI that we did use, it doesn't look like CGI. So a lot of old school trickery, if you will, magic, like Hollywood, you know, Hollywood magic was utilized here, because all the people in the crew and the special effects team are people that he had known for 20 plus years that have worked on humongous films. And so bringing these people in, and they had become invested in the project because they really loved the record. They really loved the music. Now, granted, too, a lot of these people didn't know who we were, and we didn't obviously know who they were. And then the cast of characters that he assembled for all of this. And we were very hands-on with him on all of this. But basically, I'm giving you a long interpretation of a lot of it had to do with Bill Yukich, the director. Like, I mean, he believed in the music so much. He believed in the vision so much that, you know, he poured himself into this, and this is just as much, you know, his baby as it is ours.
As I said before, I've seen all of these and heard all of these awesome projects that you guys have been a part with through the years, but what is your reaction when you see something this titanic, this large, this involved, unlike anything you've done before? What is your reaction when you're finally seeing a finished product?
Relief, to be totally honest.
Thank God it's done and it doesn't suck. Thank God.
It's well, it's funny. It's like, to me, it's like it's just getting started. Like, I understand what you mean, where it's like, oh, it's done.
Yeah.
Like, we did it. It's like, it's kind of the opposite. It's like, it's relief because now we can finally show it to people.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched it 500 times. You know, because I've been involved in the editing and everything else with Bill, like the band, like we've seen it so much, you know, and just the meticulous that goes, you know, into this, because making movies is different than making a record. It's way, way different. And, you know, we're working with an amazing production company and distributor, Gravitas Ventures, that is putting the film out. And just learning everything from them, like the whole movie side of the industry, that is a totally different animal. And they've been.
If you thought the music industry was screwed up and crazy, man, try making movies.
Dude, it's gnarly. It is so it's fun, but it's gnarly. Like it's intense. Like I've never seen email chains with like hundreds of people where I'm just like, who are all these people? You know, it's crazy. And I know I sound like a goofy kid right now, kind of like, but it is. It's very like it's kind of it's very thrilling and humbling at the same time because there is so much that goes into this, so much. And, you know, but it is relief. It's relief that I'm so grateful, and the band is so grateful that, and our management, everybody at Indigood and McGathey Promotions, like our manager, Bill McGathey, he's been with us every step of the way with this. You know, we've been together for 20 years. Steve Robertson, our A&R at Atlantic Records, and everybody at Atlantic Records, from, you know, Julie Greenwald and Craig Cowman, chairman of Atlantic, they've been with us this whole way. Like, they knew that this was something that we really, really wanted to do, and there was a reason for it. And there's not a lot of projects. The president of Gravitas, Tony, he was like, I've seen a lot of bands do documentaries. I've seen bands do, like, you know, musical accompaniment to records and things like that. But I've never seen a band take an album that the album was released, you kind of borrowed the mentality of Quentin Tarantino and kind of Pulp Fictioned with the audience a little bit with the visuals because of the singles, because it all makes, you know, sense in the complexity of the actual film. But you've got a 3-year journey of releasing these singles, touring this album, the album being out. Some of the visuals are there, but not all of them are there. And then 3 years after the fact, by the way, I have to thank you, and I have to thank the fan base, because today we learned that the Attention album officially went gold. So thank you all so much for support. Yeah, it's thank you for just the years of support and the fan base. But, you know, the Gravitas, they were like, we've not seen a band put a record out, have this success, have these visuals come out, because it's part of a bigger element that the audience doesn't know just yet. And then 3 years later, then you release it. It's almost like the second act to the record. You know what I mean? It's like, here's another level to this album. And that's what interested them in being a part of this project, because they had not really seen that before. And to be honest with you, they thought it was pretty ballsy. And, you know, and it was also something new and exciting for them. You know, you have this idea like, well, the album has been out for 3 years. That's true. But there's this whole thing that you've not seen yet. And that was why it took so long also. We had to make sure that when we presented it to the audience, that it was exactly the way that we wanted it. And, you know, I'll tell you, I remember one day, we shot the video, which you can see the video for the title track of the record, Attention. That was 4 city blocks in Los Angeles, California, that we shut down to do that. And I don't know if anybody understands, like, shutting down any city blocks takes a lot of permitting, takes a lot of, like, ingenuity. Shutting down 4 city blocks in downtown LA is a whole nother animal. And, you know, that was probably one of the days where, like, I rolled on the set and I was like, oh, this is like for real. It's pretty inspiring.